Hi, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I know that we have some people still joining, but I'm going to go ahead and kick this off. So my name is Tara Levitt, and I am a senior business analyst here at MotionSoft. And what I'm going to do today is take you through our 2.1 release overview. We've prepared some customer-facing documentation that I'm going to use in conjunction with this presentation. We also have a training environment that I can show you some examples as well. Our 2.1 release is currently scheduled for September 3rd. There will be communication around the release, and we'll send out emails the same way we sent this webinar invite. We'll send out emails notifying you of the day and reminding you to clear your cache and let your staff know and so forth, like we do with every major release. I just want to cover a couple of webinar items for those of you that haven't participated in one of these before. We will have everybody's muted, so if you're talking or you ask questions, I can't hear you. So on your GoToWebinar control panel, there is a questions section, and you can type your questions in there. I get a notification that you have one. And we're going to be taking this section by section. So what I'll do is I'll stop at the end of each section, answer any questions that have come in, and give you guys a chance to ask anything that you have there as well. After the webinar, we will send out some the documentation that we're going to be presenting. So this release overview can be emailed out to you. You can distribute it among your club as well. And we are going to be recording this session. So if you do have somebody who is a part of your team that was unable to make the session and you think it's important that they get to review it, just go ahead and shoot us an email, and we can send you a link so that you can watch the recording through that link. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started then. So we're going to start with the agreement section. So one of the new features that we have is agreement rules. And these agreement rules are designed to give us some more limitations and requirements for when agreements can be started, when they can be renewed, how far they can be canceled, what the minimum number of days notification required to cancel are, and the number of days that you could suspend an agreement in the future. So just to give you an idea, you can have multiple agreement rules. So you might have different rules for different types of agreements. So maybe your membership agreements, you don't want them to be able to start too far in the future, but maybe your service agreements, you don't care and they can start them up to 90 days in the future. So you could have different agreement rules, and then you're going to actually associate your rules with the agreements, which I'll go over in a second. There are security permissions that need to be set in order to access the screen for agreement rules, and there are override permissions. So even if you set an agreement rule, excuse me, if you set an agreement rule so that you can only put it in the future 30 days at the most, you can give a work role the ability, for example, to override that start date. So I could say, generally, I don't want anyone to be able to set it greater than 30 days in the future, but maybe my general managers, I'll give them the ability to override that. So if for some reason they think it's necessary to put that start date in the future, they would be able to do that. So to configure this, you're going to go under staff work roles and then feature security permission. So this is just our standard feature security tree that shows up in there. So this is set at the staff work role level. And there's a new section called member agreement management. So all of these options here can override the settings that you're setting in agreement rules. One kind of tricky one is, in order to actually get access to create agreement rules, if you go to, oops, sorry. Oh, 1 second here, wrong environment. if you want to set the permissions to create those agreement rules, you're going to actually go into the agreement rules screen, and you have to right click to access those security permissions. This is something that we're going to be adding to the standard permission tree, but right now this is where you'll have to set that. So only the system administrators or whoever's in charge of actually doing your configuration, you'll have to give them the ability to view, change, and add agreement rules here. And then all of the user permissions as far as overriding those are all set at staff work role, and then under the feature security permissions there. So over here on this side, that's where you would see that. So, and then this is what the agreement rules look like. I just set up kind of a standard general one that I could use with different agreements. I said my start date maximum that they're allowed to start it in the future is 60 days. I can say how many days they're allowed to backdate, so I don't want them to backdate it at all. I can say the cancellation effective date, how many days in the future they can cancel, what the minimum notification days are. So if you have certain agreements that you require 30-day cancellation notice, and you have certain agreements that you require 90-day cancellation notice, you could create 2 separate agreement rules, and then it would enforce that when you go through the cancellation wizard. Suspension rules, the max number of days in the future. And then we have a new feature, which we're actually going to cover a little bit later in the webinar, where you can renew paid in full and installment agreements. So there are now also renewal rules on how far in advance or after an agreement expires that you can renew it. So all of that is set here. Then as far as associating those agreement rules, that's going to be done at the agreement level. So if I'm a system administrator and I go into agreements and I highlight single membership, for example, I'm going to edit that agreement, and then this is where that agreement rule is going to be linked to this agreement. So any bundles or anything that I sell under this agreement are going to follow these rules that I've set. Rules are not required, so if you just want to keep things exactly as they are and you don't want to use agreement rules, it won't be forced. You can just leave this as blank and you'll just go on business as usual. All right, so that's that. One of the things we just kind of started talking about was agreement renewals. So we now have the ability to renew an expiring or an expired agreement. So this is really simple. If I just go to the member record and I'm going to look up myself here. I have a paid in full agreement. It's associated with my agreement rule that said I could renew it when I wanted to. So it's paid in full here. All I have to do is highlight that agreement, hit edit, and hit renew, and it will just take me directly into the agreement wizard to select my options of what I'm purchasing there. So it's just kind of a quicker way to get somebody renewed if they've already been a member, as opposed to letting their contract expire and then having to go sell them a completely new one. So it's just a little different there. Some important notes about this: you can only renew a paid in full or an installment agreement. So there's no renewals for perpetual agreements. This is just paid in full or term, basically. And then the other note that I think is important is it's only going to renew. It's not going to renew at whatever the price was before. It's just the same as if you were selling an agreement. So the only thing that you're going to be able to offer this member is pricing that you have available now. So if you don't have legacy pricing available and the member had legacy pricing before, this renewal isn't really going to do anything there. It's just going to give you a quicker way to re-sign up their membership without having to go through the whole process. But the renewal still has to have a bundle and pricing that's active in your system today. For configuration of this, there are 3 really important pieces that have to be configured in order to use this feature. So the first one we've already talked about, and that's the agreement rules. So if I don't have an agreement rule associated with an agreement and I've specified how far in advance I can renew, or how far after I can renew, I won't see renewal as an option. So that has to be set. So you can't decide that you want to use renewals and not use agreement rules. They come together. The other thing that has to be configured is under your bundle setup, the bundles that you want to be able to be renewed they have a new option now called renewal agreements. So they've had new agreements, rewrite, and then there's now renewal. So that renewal has to be selected. So you'll need to go through all of your bundles that you want to be able to be renewed at and select that option in order for them to appear in the wizard. And then lastly, that just goes in hand with the agreement rules. Under the agreement, that agreement has to be associated with an agreement rule that has the renewal rules in there. Okay, so far it doesn't look like we have any questions on that, so I'm just going to keep going here. The next section is rewriting. So not a ton to explain here other than one of the new features that's in 2.1 is the ability to rewrite across agreement groups, which was previously a limitation. So if you have a agreement group for family and an agreement group for family platinum, for example, I can now rewrite from one agreement to another agreement group with no problem. The only important notes here are that you can only rewrite into another agreement group that has the same classification. So I can't go from an agreement group that classifies me as a member to an agreement group that classifies me as a service. And then the payment allocation has to be this, it can't be changed when I'm rewriting between agreement groups. So if one agreement group has me billing 100% to my primary, it's going to inherit that no matter what the next agreement group says, and it's going to keep my payment allocation at 100% to the primary, which I imagine if you're doing rewrites between agreement groups, those types of things aren't changing anyways. Also, the number of add-ons in the agreement group that you're rewriting into can't exceed the maximum. So if I have 6 add-ons on my account today and I'm trying to rewrite into an agreement group and that agreement group says that I'm only allowed to have a maximum number of 4 add-ons, it won't let me proceed because I'm already breaking the agreement rule. So you won't be able to do that. And then lastly, the agreement that I have has to be allowed as an add-on in the agreement group that I'm writing into. And I'm going to send you guys a link. You may have already received this too when you got the notifications, but you'll be seeing it. The wiki that has the release notes has sections on all of these that are super detailed. So if you do decide that you want to use one of these features as well, it will walk you through step by step by step by step all the rules and all the things that have to be configured. So if you run into any issues, you'll have this guide as well as the wiki to help you with that. And then as long as your system is already configured to do rewrites, there's not really any additional configuration. So if you already have agreements that are selected to be rewrite agreements and you're meeting the rules, then that's all that you need to do. You don't have to do any additional configuration there. Okay. The next feature is we can now limit the active number of agreements that you have. So this has been something that a lot of customers have requested. So basically right now in the version that everybody's using, you can have as many active membership agreements as you want, and there's nothing that limits that. So this feature is I can now say you're only allowed to have 1 active membership agreement at one time. So some of the important notes about it is it's only going to limit agreements that will mark you to qualify you as a member. So if you have a guest agreement that doesn't qualify you as a member, and then you sell them a membership agreement that does, only that membership agreement is going to count towards this count of number of agreements that they're allowed to have. It doesn't apply to corporates. And there is no permission to override this limitation. So this is a global setting and it will be enforced and no staff work role can override this. And this can be set differently for different business units and divisions. So it's on the member configuration screen, and I can set this at the enterprise division or business unit level. So if I want to allow one location to have 2 agreements, but another one to only have 1, I can do that. And then if you just leave the field blank, it won't enforce any limitation, which is how it's working today. So if this isn't an issue for you and you don't want to even think about it, you don't have to do anything here. You can just leave it alone and it'll keep working the way that it's working now. The configuration for this is just under system configuration, member configuration, and then it's under member agreement limit, and you put in a max qualifies as members, which is outlined for you below. Okay, so that's what I have for agreement section. I haven't received any questions, so I'm just going to give you guys 1 second here. Oh wait, actually I do have one, so let me just look at this. So I got a question asking, is limiting the number of add-ons something new with this update? So actually, we've always been able, with agreement groups, we can limit the maximum number of add-ons. So if you go to agreement groups, one of the general rules under the agreement group is that I can enable an add-on count limit, and I can set a maximum value. So I can say here that if you sign up for this agreement group, you can only have up to 2 add-ons, and then it won't let me have more than that. So it would let me have 1 primary and 2 add-ons. So that's in there. Okay, any other questions? Are we okay to move on? All right, so now we're gonna go to check-in. So this is a really cool feature. I think this is gonna make the front desk job a lot easier, and it's something that we wanna expand upon with a couple other things. We've already thought of some areas that we could add to this as well. So basically what we've done is we've added a section for quick actions. So right now, some of you guys, under your recent check-ins, you have buttons for childcare and activity management, and those buttons will take you directly into childcare module or directly into the activity management module. What we've done is we've gotten rid of those, and we've created just one drop-down list, and then you now have the ability to put multiple quick actions in there. So we already had activity management and childcare. It's now in this drop-down list. And then what we did is we added a few more. So we added member card, photo, and point of sale. So if I were to check in a member, and you'll have to just ignore my plugins that I am really out of date on. So if I have my recent check-ins here, all of them will have this quick action link under their name. I've configured it to have all of these options. You don't have to have all of these, and we'll talk about that in a second. So if I wanted to just update this member's card, like maybe the barcode that they're using is no longer active and I wanted to change it, it'll just pull right up the member card. All I have to do is make it lost or stolen, or add the new card and make it active there. So it's just a lot easier than clicking on the member, going into manage, clicking on cards, and then clicking add. So we've saved quite a few steps for the front desk there. The other one is photo. So if I click on photo, it will give me the ability to see a larger picture, or I can capture, upload their photo from here as well. And then if I choose point of sale, this will take me directly into the point of sale with that member preloaded. So now it's really simple for me to just go ring them up for anything that they need to be rung up for without having to go into point of sale and search for them or click on their name and then go to point of sale. So again, it's just less clicks, which is the feedback that we've been getting from everybody. So we hope that this will make it easier for the front desk to sort of navigate and do common tasks for different members. So some important notes, I said the existing buttons are coming into this list. If you already had activity management and or childcare selected, part of the migration to the new version will automatically include quick actions with those 2 items selected. So then for configuration, you would just want to go in and add the other ones if you want those available. Configuration's pretty simple. It's under system configuration and under workstations. So if I go to workstations, I have to do this on every workstation. So your front desk ones are going to, wherever you're doing check-in, this is going to need to be done if you want to use this feature. And then over on the right-hand side, I now have a link called Edit Check-in Quick Actions. And then if I open that up, so if you've already had activity in childcare, this is what's going to come over when we do the migration. And then you would just go in and select the additional items that you want to show. If you don't have childcare or you don't think the activity management is not something that you're really using because maybe you're using scheduler and you don't really need this, then you can just unselect and you won't see it as an option there. But you're going to want to go in, check those options for each workstation and hit done, and that's how that would need to be configured. Okay, and all right. And then the next thing that, the next feature is the past due alerts at check-in. So today, if I'm a member and I had an invoice that was generated yesterday and I didn't have funding information on file, or I did and it declined, I would immediately start alerting at the front desk that I have a past due balance. So one of the things that we have heard from a lot of customers is that you guys want to be able to set some sort of a grace period for when you start stopping these members and when you start denying these members. So that's exactly what we've done. So you now have the ability to say how aged you want the balance to be or how many days past due you want, or I'm sorry, what you want the balance total to be before we start alerting them. So a couple notes on this, it's a global setting. So I can't say I only want to alert if I'm past due on a membership agreement, but not on a child care agreement. If I'm past due from anything, whether it's a point of sale transaction, a service agreement, or a membership agreement, it's gonna read these parameters and alert me accordingly. And then if you decide to set both requirements, so I set a number of days past due and an amount, both requirements have to be met in order to alert. So if I say I want to be at least 10 days past due and I want it be more than $10 past due, if I'm 11 days past due but I only owe $5, it won't alert. So if you set both requirements, then it will want you to meet both requirements. So that's just kind of something to think about there. And then no matter what, even if I'm not alerting them, I'm letting them go through, it'll always still show that there is a balance, and I can always expand the past due ribbon. This setting is specifically whether or not you want the alert to appear at check-in, or if you want the alert to deny them at check-in. That's all that it's doing. It's not gonna not show them that this member is past due. For configuration, it's really simple. Under system configuration, under check-in and activity configuration, there's a section for check-in alerts. So if I go to check-in and activity configuration, and then under check-in alerts, there's now this bill account past due setting. So this is where I set the number of days past due and the amount past due. So if you just want it to, if all that you're looking for is a grace period and a number of days, then you can just say, I want to give them 10 days and that's it. That's all I would have to set. And it would let them come in, no problems, no alerts, for up to 10 days, and then it would start alerting. So that's all that you would have to set there. Very simple. Okay. Any questions about check-in? Doesn't look like I have any. Okay, so I'm going to move on to member management. We've done some really cool things to help with family memberships in here. So the first feature that we've added is the ability to automatically suspend add-on agreements. So today, if I had a family of 5 and I wanted to suspend my primary agreement, or I wanted to suspend everybody's agreement, if my agreement rule said that there was action required for a freeze or a hold, I would have to go in and freeze each individual agreement. So all 5 agreements, I'd have to freeze one by one by one by one before I could go in and freeze the primary. So this new feature allows you that if you go to freeze the primary and you have the status change rule, it will actually allow you to freeze everybody at the same time. So it's really cool. Even if you say that no action is required, you'll still see the list of all the add-ons associated with them. So if someone says, yeah, I want to freeze my family too because we're all going to Europe for the summer and none of us are going to be using the facility, even if I'm not enforcing it, I'd still see this screen and I'd be able to go through and click on the members that I wanted to suspend, and it would suspend them with the same dates, the same reason, all in one fell swoop. And if action is required, I would see the same screen, but I wouldn't have the option of selecting or deselecting them. It would say that they must be suspended, and it's just kind of giving you a heads up that it's doing that. So that's going to save quite a few steps for those of you that have to enter freezes in the back office. And then same thing for canceling. So we now have it so that if you cancel a primary agreement, it'll do the exact same thing. If you say that a action is necessary, it will force you to cancel all of the add-ons. If you say it's not necessary, it will suggest that you could cancel them, but it doesn't make you. The only exception is that if I cancel them, my cancellation cannot take effect immediately. So if I want to cancel my whole entire family together, my cancellation effective date has to be set in the future. It can be set to tomorrow, and that's as far in the future as it has to be set. It just can't be an immediate cancellation, and that's the only stipulation to these cancellations, and it has to do with if they've already been billed and calculating refunds and things like that. Okay, any questions on any of that section? Okay, so the next thing that we've done is we've completely redesigned the invoices tab. It doesn't look anything like what it looked like before. We've really done this for a couple of reasons. We tried to give a much easier summary view so that you don't have to kind of dig around as much for the basic information that you need. But one of the things that we've also heard is that there wasn't enough detail on our existing invoices screen. So in addition to showing kind of some quicker summary views, we've added some layers of detail that give you more information about transactions that we've never been able to get before without having to go run a ton of reports and things like that. So it's really nice that all this information is in invoices. But I would strongly recommend that everybody spend a lot of time in this tab and making sure that you understand the changes that have been made, especially if you're a person who has to use this a lot, because it is really different than what we're used to. So a couple of things. There's multiple search options, and the idea is to help narrow down what you're looking for easier than scrolling through a bunch of invoices. So, excuse me, you now have the ability to search by invoices or search by payments. You still have the ability to search by date range, and then you also have the ability to search for invoices. Before, we could only search for invoices that had a balance or didn't. Now I can search for anybody who has a balance remaining, anybody who has any balance, and a credit balance, which we'll talk about credit because that's a new feature as well. So searching by invoices, I also have several options. So it might be easier for me to just show you within a member tab here. So if I go to the invoices screen, For under invoices, I can search by all invoice types, so any invoice. I can search by specific agreement number. So if I have a member that I'm looking up transactions for on agreement number 77, I can type that agreement number in, and the only invoices I'll see are invoices that came from agreement 77. I can search by invoices that basically were generated by an agreement. So I went to the point of sale because I sold an agreement and I performed a transaction that generated an invoice. That's going to show up here. And then I have invoices that were generated by the billing or by my club. So I purchased something through my club, or my billing created an invoice because it's my monthly dues. I can search there through billing in my club. I can still search by a specific invoice number, and I can search by invoices that were generated by the point of sale. So I went to the point of sale, I sold a water bottle. That's an invoice that's generated by the point of sale. So I have a lot of different options for how I can kind of narrow down invoices. And then this payments is, I can search for payments that have been made against invoices. So all payment types, or I can search by payments that were generated by the billing, or payments that were generated through the point of sale through the back office. So I think a lot of confusion in the past has been, well, this member has a payment applied and they have an invoice, but they weren't supposed to get billed yet, and we couldn't see that it was done at the front desk by making a future payment. So just the ability to search by payments and by the types or how the invoice was generated is going to help simplify. And then the other thing that we have is, so we have a summary screen over here. So this screen is really different as well. We've moved, obviously everything before was top to bottom. Everything now is left to right, which we just think with your eyes is a little bit easier to navigate through. And then we've added and moved some of these columns around. So if you have an invoice actually that has a past due balance, there will be check boxes here, and you can check the boxes and say make payments. So this make payments button used to be like way up here. Now it's here. This column used to be on the right hand side, and now it's on the left hand side. So it's just a little bit more user friendly that way. And then we also added just a quick, okay, this is the balance, this is amount due, and this is the total. And we took out the facility column from this section. So this is very at a glance. What's the invoice for? What's the date and time? How much was it for? And then just by highlighting it, I automatically will get a summary view. So my summary view will at a glance give me a lot more information that I might need. So this is where it's going to tell me what location the invoice was for, what location this invoice was generated at, when it was originally due. So this is a huge one. Historically, we haven't really been able to see the due date until that invoice has already been paid, and then it would just show up as like a line item next to it. So now, even if the invoice isn't paid, I can still highlight it and see when it's supposed to be due or when it was originally due. I can see what member it was billed to, what the invoice date was, who the entering employee was, and if it was created by point of sale, billing, etc. So that's really good detailed information at a quick view. Then if I scroll down, I have sort of like a receipt version. So these are all the items that I purchased. These were the totals, these were the payments, and this is the balance. And then from here, I can view details. I can print the invoice, which will just print the original invoice, just like it always has. And then this view details does the same thing as if I go to invoice details. This invoice details screen, again, it's giving me more information, but it's giving me the payment information, and all the payment information is actually hyperlinked to give you even more detail on the transaction. So I can see that they paid cash on 8/21, and if I click on this link, it'll open up this transaction detail for that specific payment, and now it tells me the transaction number, exactly when and where that transaction happened. It tells me that it was done at the point of sale, the tender type, the amount. I might have it, the transaction may have occurred at a different location than what location it was due for. So that would show up here. And then it also tells me the workstation and the employee, which was also information that I wasn't getting consistently before. Um, the other thing that's really nice is if I had an invoice that had been paid off through multiple transactions, so maybe a member made a partial payment and then they made another partial payment, both of those would show up. They would link to transaction details, and I could see the details for both separate payments and where they were taken and what funding source was used and so forth. So again, it's really different as far as navigating. It took me a second to sort of get used to it, but we were very excited that it's kind of giving you guys more information that you really need to be able to have. So I think overall it's good. I kind of have tried to give some descriptions on what each individual item needs. Again, the wiki does a good job also of sort of defining this, but I think a lot of it is just going to be kind of getting used to the way that it works now versus the way that it was before. There's no other notes that I have on this, and there's no additional configuration needed. Sorry, one other thing on the payment side here. You also now have the ability to reverse a payment directly from the Invoices tab. I just want to clarify that this is reverse, not return. So reversals are mostly going to be chargebacks or a payment that was made in error. We would eventually love to have return invoice in here as well, and it's something that we're talking about. But in the past, you were only able to reverse a payment by going to the point of sale, looking up the specific payment, and then reversing it there. So this is a lot easier for those of you that perform sort of back office functions and might have to do that more. And then the payments tab, it's just going to show you the same. One payment could have been made to multiple invoices, like I said earlier. So all of those invoices would be listed here. And then if I highlight the invoice, I see the same invoice details that I would see on the invoice screen, and the same payment details as well, with the same links that would open up transaction details. So it's just kind of different ways to see different things there. Okay, I'm going to stop for a sec and see if there's any questions. And I'm not seeing any, so I'll keep going. Okay, so the next section is going to be under activity management. So those of you that have to reinstate sessions or are working a lot with services, this is a really important section for you guys. So one of the new features is I can extend an expiration date on an item now before it expires. So if I want to go to, let's see here, this member, if I go into activity management, and there's a couple things. If I go to their beginner PT sessions, I now have the ability to edit this expiration date. So it's going to expire in September, but if for whatever reason, if it's customer service or the member comes in and says, I'm not going to be able to get those done, or if it was just simply a configuration error and you've changed it, but it's already been sold to some people, I can come in here and say edit expiration, and all I have to do is plug in a new expiration date. So I can say it's going to be 11/1, and I can save it. It'll update my expiration date here and here. And then I now have a change history tab. So I can see that on this date, I changed this field, and this is who changed it and for what facility. So it will track any changes that are made there. So that's a really cool feature. Some important notes is when you change that expiration date, it's going to change it for all of the units. So I can't say, well, I'll extend one of your sessions, but that's it. If you're extending them this way, you're extending all of them. And then, like I said, you've got the track changes and the change history there. There is a permission required to do this. It's under staff work roles, feature security permissions, activity management. there's an option called extend activity expiration date. So once you have that, then you would be able to save a new expiration date there. So if anyone is doing this frequently, or this is a feature that you've asked for, you definitely want to make sure that you get that permission so that you can use this new feature. Another thing that we've done to kind of make things easier excuse me, is we've created a consolidated activity view. So for members that have the same service, but maybe they have purchased multiple packages of it, instead of showing it as a different line item for every package, we've consolidated that there. You can see by looking at it that it's a little different and that there's multiples. If I click on this little blue button, it will drop down and show me the different packages that make up this. So I can see that I have 3 units that expire on September 21st and 5 units that expire on the 21st. If I toggle between them, my history and my detail over here and what I'm redeeming will change based off of the item I'm selecting. The other thing is it's going to show them in order of when they expire first. So that's there as well. There's no additional configuration. This is just the way it's going to look. And it has to be the exact same item. So if you're using different items, then those would still appear as separate lines. So it's only if you have multiple quantities that you've purchased at different times that are the exact same item. Another feature that we've added to activity management is the ability to bulk reinstate expired sessions. So for example, if you have a member who has all of their PT package expired, they forgot about it, they were having a problem with the club, whatever it is, and 10 of their sessions expired, and you decide that you're going to let them use those sessions again, what will happen is you would go under their history and you now have this reinstate expired button, and then you would see this screen here. So this screen will come up and say, okay, why do you want to reinstate these sessions? So you have to have a reinstatement reason. It will default the new expiration date to be however many days from now that item is valid for. So if your PT is typically valid for 90 days, that new expiration date will default to be 90 days from today, but you can override it. Now on this one, I can say the quantity that I want to reinstate. So if you make an agreement with the member that, well, you had 10 sessions that expired, as a courtesy, I'll give you back 5 of them, I can reinstate 5. It'll default to the amount that's expired, but I can override that. And those are the same as the notes that I made. And then as long as you already have reinstatement reasons configured, there's no additional configuration that would be needed. It's just in the current system, if you go reinstate a session, you have to do them one by one by one by one. This is just a way to kind of do it a little bit quicker. Again, less clicks, less steps. So that was kind of our goal there. All right, let's see. I think we've got some questions. So I have a question. Can you put a note on that line as to why you are editing the activity? So when you are, when you go to extend the date, it doesn't appear that there is a note field that I can put on there. I just can change it. That'd be a good enhancement request though to make, to be able to put a comment or something like that. Okay, the next question I got was, can sessions be reinstated if the configuration is that they forfeit after expiration, which is a really good question. When we introduced the item being able to forfeit, we also have a permission associated that you can expire, or you can reinstate a forfeited activity. So if you don't have that permission, then no, you wouldn't be able to reinstate these sessions. But if you do have the permission to reinstate a forfeited activity, then you would be able to reinstate them this way as well. So it would work exactly the same as it does today. It's just if you're bulk reinstating versus reinstating on a single basis. That's the only difference. Okie dokie. So the next section is point of sale. This is really cool, exciting stuff. So there's a couple of changes made to the point of sale. So now if I go, let me launch that. So before, these options were a little different. I think this make payment said pay invoice with balance, and then these two were here. So we changed it. Now is just make payment, which will be two things. I can either pay a past due balance, or I can put a credit on account, which we'll talk about, or I can pay a balance, an invoice that's already been generated that isn't past due yet. So I have three options there. And then pay future invoices the same, and reverse payment is the same. Again, we can do reverse payment from the back office too, but you can do it from here also. So under the new make payment section, I can pay past due invoices. So if I wanted to pull up a customer who's past due, if I go to payments, make payment, it's going to show me his invoices that are due. It tells me the balance and the due amount. And this is a totally new screen. It's going to default that I have to pay the amount here. And then one of the new things that we can do is I can actually overpay and create a credit. So with this example, the member is past due, so it's going to make me, if I'm putting a credit on, I have to also pay his balance. So what I could do is say, I'm going to pay my $9 that I'm past due, but I also want to put $50 on my account to use towards future purchases. So I can say that my payment amount is $59. And then what it's going to do is say, all right, we'll pay your $9 invoice, and then we'll give you a credit for $50. And then these credits, I have a few options. I can say this credit can be used for either on-account charges or agreement charges. It can be used for on-account charges only, or it can be used for agreement charges only. So what this means is if you have a cafe, for example, or smoothie bar, something like that, and you have families that come in and they charge on account, I can now say, I'm going to put $50 on my account, and anything I charge at the smoothie bar, I want it to pull from this credit before it bills me. So that would be on account. Agreement would be, I want to put money on my account and I just want my dues to pull from that instead of drafting me. And that would be agreement. And if somebody wants to put a couple $100s on their account and they don't care if the charge is coming from their agreement or from on account, then I would say that it's both. So in this instance, I'll say that it's for either on account or agreement billing, and I'll say apply. It'll show me that it's paying off my invoice number 3, and then it'll show me that I have a future credit applied to any kind of billing for $50, and my total payment's $59. I'll add the tender and finalize the transaction. Not sure if you guys noticed or not, but we've removed one click from the finalizing transaction, so that goes a little bit faster. It doesn't ask you 3 times if you're sure that you want to finalize. So that has been a lot more pleasant to kind of work through. And now if I go back into this member's account and I go to their invoices screen here, let me update him because he paid. Now I can see that I have an account credit. It's used for any billing and it's for $50. I've got all my details. I can see where I took that payment, what tender type I used, all that fun stuff. And then if I go and start charging on-account charges onto my account, what will happen is it will pull from this $50. How that happens is really important to understand. So there's no automatic application of my credit to what I'm charging. So if I go and I say I have a $50 credit and I go charge a $5 transaction on account, it's still going to show that I have a $5 invoice and a $50 credit. And it's not until my on-account billing happens that when that billing happens, it's going to pull from my credit before it pulls from my bank account or my credit card, whatever funding source that I have on file. So it's really important. It's not going to be immediate. You can't automatically apply it and see that it's applied. It's a part of our billing process, which is important. So on account has their own on account billing schedule. Everybody has this. This is the billing schedule that on account credits and on account charges will go through. And then you have agreements, and agreements have their billing schedules, which could be the same or could be different from this, right? So if I say I have a $50 credit and I can use it for agreements or on account, and my on account bill schedule is every Friday, and my agreement bill schedule is on the 1st, it's going to do whatever comes first. So if I go put something on account today, my Friday on account billing is happening tomorrow. That on account billing is going to eat my credit before I get to my billing on the 1st. So if you have a member who comes in and says, I want to put this towards my agreement so that I don't get billed next month, it's going to be really important that you specify that it's for agreement only. And when you're looking at the invoice, it will show you that it's any billing, agreement billing, or on-account billing, so you can see that as well. So that's that piece of it. And let's see what else I was going to say about that. What kinds of credits people can use are permission-based. So if you don't want to allow your front desk to take agreement billing or on-account interview, if you only want to give them one option, it's a permission to even see it as an option, so you can limit that as well. And then there's so that's it for it's under feature security permissions and under point of sale and payments, and then those are the different options. And there's also now the ability to refund a credit, which we didn't have before. So if Bruce comes in and says, oh, I'm canceling the club, can you give me my $50 back? I can actually return his $50 and it'll put it back to a funding source, instead of before we would have to go apply that credit to a balance, to an invoice, and give it back to them some kind of wonky way. But now I can actually go through my return wizard and give them back this $50. So that's nice. So auto application, I did outline this. I know I've kind of been talking about it, but it does talk about on account versus agreement versus both. And then some important notes. So I already said that it doesn't pull from the credit instantly. It happens as a part of the billing process, and it's going to follow whatever those billing schedules are. The other thing I think is really important to note is I can't specify which agreement I want to apply that credit to. So if you have a member who has a membership agreement and a personal training agreement, and you're intending for that credit to only be enough money to cover their membership agreement, it's not going to work like that. It will pull, any agreement will bill from that credit before it bills to the member. So if you're truly trying to just pay off that membership agreement for the next 3 months and they have other agreements, you'd be better to just pay the future invoice the way that you have been. But if you only have one agreement and you're not worried about that, then this is an easier way to handle that without having to go through and pay future payment, pay future payment, pay. And then the other note is that some of you guys have already been doing on account credits where you're creating like a negative transaction and then you can do a credit transfer through the invoices tab. Those on account credits that exist prior to this release will not be automatically pulled from. So they still would have to be applied manually. So we didn't want to assume that they were for on account or for billing or for both. So they're still going to remain in there. They will never be pulled from automatically. So we strongly recommend that you pull a report of any members that have an existing credit and go manually apply them, so that it's not a question later of, well, I have a credit on my account, why didn't it pull from that? And there's no additional configuration required. There's nothing that has to be set up with billing. This is just the way that it's going to work. Okay, got some questions here. Let's see. Can you put membership agreement charges on account? So that's still no. So if I'm going through and selling an agreement, when I get to the point of sale and it says I owe whatever for my down payment, my first month's dues and all that fun stuff, I still have to pay that. I can't put that on account. Nothing has changed there. Can we create a credit invoice and it will still be applied towards future billing invoice automatically? So this new way to apply a credit is the right way. So anyone who's been going into an item and returning it and doing a negative, we would not recommend that you do it that way. So do it through this wizard here so that we make sure it works properly and applies properly and that it's tracked properly as well. Does this on-account transaction get billed to the club like any other transaction? So basically, if I charged something on account, so if I charged a water on account, it would, let's see, maybe I might be able to do it here. I can say add tender on account, and it's going to tell me I have a $50 credit. So I'm going to charge my $30. And then basically, if I didn't have a credit, it would just bill my $30 that I just charged on account on the 1st. But since I do have a credit, on the 1st, it will pull my 30 off of my 50, and I'll have a $20 credit, and I won't see that transaction get billed to my credit card because I have that credit. I hope that answers that question. Can you put a credit towards a PT agreement versus a membership agreement? No, it's agreements or on account, all in all. There's no way to specify what agreement we're putting the credit towards. Can you create a food package where the member pays $300 but gets a $500 balance? The only way I could think to give bonus credit would be to do like a split tender on the transaction, and do part of it with like a dummy tender type. So if I go to, with this member loaded, if I were to say payment, make payment, and I'm going to put a credit on account. So let's say we do what you said, and we're going to give them a $500 credit. Then what I would do is under my add tender, I would say I want to do cash $300, and then I would do $200. I'd have a tender type here that's called like bonus cash or something along those lines, that's mapped to a specific GL that doesn't really charge them. And then this way they could get the full 500, but you're not actually charging them the full 500. So that would be the way that I would accomplish that. Okay, another question I got is, can the credit be used by anybody in the family that's an add-on to the primary? So as long as the add-on members have on-account privileges, so if they're a party on account and that they are able to allow purchases, then they would also pull from that same credit as long as you run them up under that member. Okay. All right, now the next question says, now that you just used that $30, the next time you do on account, will it show that there's only 20 left, or will it show to continue the 50 until billing? So it still works the way that it works today, where it should be pulling from your credit limit based off of what you've charged. So see, I charged $30 on, so now my account balance is negative 20 because I have a $20 credit. So every time I put on account charges, it will eat away at what that balance is here. So you would see that as well. And that will work that way up until billing, and then it would go back to zero or go up once you add an additional credit onto the account. Good questions. Okay, so this is cool, exciting feature, and everyone has been asking for that for a long time, so that's exciting. Okay, the next one is a really simple one. We've enhanced the member search. I know that there's a couple of areas in the system, like activity management, where this still is not consistent. And so we know this, and we're making as many of these changes and kind of tucking them into these releases as much as we can. But for this one, if I now go search for a member in the point of sale, I'll see more information than just their name and their member number. So if I search for Bruce Willis, it will show me his picture, his address, if he's active in the club. So this should be, and what we're trying to make all of our searches look like, is the same search that you see when you search under the members tab. So we're getting consistent there, but it's a nice add that it's now available in the point of sale, so you'll see that as well. Also, I think there was an issue with paging, and it would only show you a few members, like 5 to 10 members, and that should be fixed with this as well. No additional configuration, no notes. Okay, another new feature that we have is employee time clock. So you now have the ability for employees to clock in and clock out and track those times. Some important notes about this. This is very, very basic. We're literally clocking you in and clocking you out and telling you how long you are clocked in for. We don't track hourly rates, so it's not going to do any sort of automatic payroll calculation. It's meant to literally take the number of hours that you have logged and plug it into your payroll application. That was the design idea here. And then there is a new report under data analytics and under the employee folder for employee time clock that will let you print off the time clock records. You'll be able to filter by the club, the department, and search for a specific employee. There's a couple of new permissions. So as you can see, there's 2 new buttons in our standard menu. There's time entry and time records. So you won't see these unless you have permission to them. So that's what I'm outlining here. So if you want your staff to be able to clock in and clock out, they have to have permission to time entries. So they have to have permissions there. So under system configuration, staff work roles, feature security permissions, there's a new folder called time entries, and then there's an option called clock in/clock out. And so you would be able to give them permission to that, and then this is what will make them be able to see time entry over here and give them the ability to clock in and clock out. Then if you wanted to see time records, which is viewing the clock-in history basically, that's a separate permission. So you wouldn't be giving this to users, you'd be giving this to managers or back office staff who's going to need to be seeing clock-in times. So that's under feature security permissions, time records, and then there's view, edit, and delete. Which is pretty standard within Moso. So you can either view the clock in and clock out times, you can add time in records, edit existing records, or delete records. So you have that there. So some notes on the configuration here. If you want to be able to have somebody clock in or clock out, they have to be associated with the department. And I don't think that a lot of you probably set departments up when you launched Moso because there really wasn't a use for it. So this really might be a piece that you need to go back and configure. So if you haven't set up work departments, it's just going to be work department setup, and then you can add different departments here. So this is where your front desk, personal training, sales, your standard departments that you would categorize different times for would be here. And then the next piece would be associating your staff. So every staff member has to be associated with the department if they're going to clock in and out. So under the staff and users, under that staff, if you go to work roles and departments and work departments, this is where you would set what work department they're in. And they can be assigned to multiple departments. So both of those have to be configured. And then lastly, your user has to have a PIN number. So if I go to clock in, it's gonna make me put in my PIN number. So if for any reason you don't have PIN numbers, you won't be able to use time entry until you go and set those. So it would show me the employee's name, a picture if I had one, the time, my last activity, and then allow me to clock in or clock out. And then if I go to time records, in here, I can see who's currently clocked in. So this is really nice for managers to kind of come up and make sure that everybody at their front desk is clocked in. And then I can do a quick search for time records that have been captured over a range of dates. I can filter by departments or by business unit here, or I can just search for time records for a specific employee, and it'll give me my search results as well. And then if I click on that, I can see every time that they clocked in and clocked out, what their total number of hours were. I can come in here and I can edit. I can say, oh, they're clocking out right now, and so forth. Okay. Any questions on time clock? Doesn't look like it. Okay. Okay, the next big thing that is part of 2.1 is promotions. It's kind of a beast. So promotions is a way to offer like seasonal promotions and discounts to members without having to go through and create a whole bunch of bundles and perpetual and installment options. So for those of you that are responsible for back office and creating those bundles, I know that you appreciate this feature. Basically, promotions will allow you to give either a percentage or flat rate discount for various items within the bundle, or your upsell items as well. So some important notes, promotions can either be applied during the agreement sale, so it's actually part of your agreement wizard, or you can create a promotion that's an adjustment, and that can be made after the sale to an existing bundle. So for example, I could have a referral adjustment that gives them a month for free, and I can go apply that later to their agreement if they've referred somebody. The other thing is that agreements can only have one active promotion at one time. So if you're gonna sell your initial agreement with a promotion that gives you 10% off every month, you can't later have that and apply another promotion for a referral or for something else. So you would have to either sell them with all of the features in a promotion that you want, or you just might want to be selective about what types of agreements you sell with promotions versus what you want to make adjustments on later. And I think that for some of you, especially that have like more complicated business models, this might be something that you want to talk through with somebody from Moso to sort of make sure that you're thinking about it in all the right ways. So we're obviously happy to help you with any of that. If you want to have a conversation about how you've been doing things versus how you want to do things moving forward, then reach out to whoever you've been working with as an account manager, and we can help walk you through this, because it is a big piece, and if we can help trim down some of your configuration, then that would be great. As far as setting up the promotions, there is a promotion management screen under system configuration. So if I go to promotion management, similar to agreement rules that we talked about earlier, promotion management, there's not a permission in the standard permission tree. So for those of you that are system admins, in order to add and edit promotions, you will have to right click in security and give permission to yourself there. And then, so this is what the promotion management screen looks like. And I have some of these pretty detailed out what tab by tab. So this section on the document is pretty long. So basically under general, it's what is my promotion called? I give it a description and whether or not it's active. And then I can say who's allowed to apply this promotion. So if you have a promotion that's specific to only your personal training department or only your managers, you can limit who can apply which promotions. I can associate my promotion with the GL code. And what this is going to do is if I give 10% off, it treats that as a separate line item where it'll say discount, promotion or discount. That discounted amount of $5 or whatever it is, that's going to be associated with this GL code that you set here. So it is a required field. And then it's going to ask, what's it available for? So is it available for primaries? Is it available for family add-ons? Is it available for corporate add-ons? Or is this just an adjustment that happens later? And then it wants to know what agreement terms. So maybe you have this only available on perpetual agreements, but not for paid in full or installment. So you have options there. And then you also can say this is you only qualify for this promotion if you're signing up for a brand new membership. So this doesn't work if you're doing a renewal or a rewrite. It's only if you're, first time coming in and selling an agreement. So it's just making some elections there. Then under my conditions, I have a couple of different options. I can require a promotion code. So I could give a promotion code as a part of some marketing campaign that I send out and say, bring in fall 2014 as your promo code and we'll give you a discount. So I can say that this is going to require a code and that code is fall 2014. And then when the salesperson goes through and sells it, as they choose that promotion, it'll ask them for the promo code. And if they don't have it, then they wouldn't qualify for the promotion. I'll go ahead and answer your question now that promotions are not available through my club and members cannot put in these codes on my club. So this is not yet something that's available online. This is just through the UI. The next thing it's going to ask is if I want to require a lead source. And what this is saying is you only can get this promotion if your lead source was online/web or buddy referral or something along those lines. And I can have multiple lead sources associated with the promotion, or I could just have one, or I don't have to use this at all. It's up to you. Then we get into the effects, and this is where we really start having fun. So effects is where you're going to say basically what this promotion is doing. So I can have multiple effects. So in one promotion, I can discount the recurring membership dues and the enrollment fee, and I can give them a free water bottle. So I can do a lot of different things with my effects. So in this example that I've set up, I set it up so that the key item gets a 10% discount. So I'm saying my item type is my key item only. It's 10% and I want it to start immediately, and it's going to give a discount 6 times. So if the promotion is for the first 6 months, you get 10% off of our rack rate. That's what I'm doing here. This number of times can be set to be unlimited. So I can just leave that blank and it'll default unlimited. So that means as long as you're a member, your key item is going to be discounted at 10%. And then the next thing I have are fees. So I have a new feature in this release where I can associate a fee with what type of fee it is. So my options are initiation, administrative, and recurring. So just really quickly, if I look at item setup, if I have an annual fee, for example, now under my fee item setup, I have this fee type and I associate my fee item with what type of fee it is. So an annual fee is a recurring fee, whereas an enrollment fee is an initiation fee. So now that I've designated those in my promotion, I can say I want to give a discount to any of the initiation fees that are part of my bundle. And what I did is I can either give a percent, I can set the price that it's going to make the item, or I can give it a fixed amount off. So if I say $5 fixed amount, it'll take $5 off. If I say one set price, it'll make any initiation fee $1. And then the other thing that's really important here is the starting sequence. So if my promotion is saying I'm going to give you a discount on your 3rd month of membership, for example, I would want to change that starting sequence to be 3. And so that would be my 3rd time that I get billed, I'm going to get this amount off. The starting sequence as 1 is pretty typical, but one thing that's really important to note is that this includes your down payment. So your down payment is really payment number 1. So if you're trying to give them, maybe you drop their first month's dues to 0, then you would want to leave the starting sequence at 1, and then you'd want to do the 10% off starting sequence 2, and that would be their actual recurring billing. And then I can give product discounts and so forth. So what I did here is I also can add an item. So I can give a gift card, I can give a water bottle, I can give a PT session, I can do different things there. So what I did is I added a water bottle, and then I said I want my effect on my product items in this bundle to discount 100%. I can add an item for a personal training session, like a VIP personal training package, and I can give them 20% off. And so I would add my item, effect add item, and then do my effect as 20% off of PT service items that are in this bundle. And then this is a way that I can give them additional items without having to go through and add items to my bundles, which, as everybody who's set up bundles knows, you'd have to go create a completely new bundle, and that's not very fun. So this is a way to kind of get those extra items in there that you need. I can say what business unit it's available at, and then also which agreements it goes with. So I've added like single and family membership, and it also can be limited by the bundle level. So if I want to add this for my single memberships but not for any of these bundles, I can just not include those. So you only qualify for this promotion if you have a single membership and either a general bundle or a VIP bundle. That's it. So I can make my limitations work that way as well. And all of this is documented pretty thoroughly here and very thoroughly through the wiki. So again, if you need some help kind of setting this up, or if you get stuck going through the wiki, then just reach out to us and let us know. And then where you're going to see it is if you go through the agreement wizard. So if I were to pull up a member and sell them an agreement, so it's just taking me through my standard selections, just like always, but then now I have a promotion screen. So any promotions that I've configured to apply to that agreement and bundle will show up here, and then I would choose the promotion that I want. And then it would give me my discount and apply that discount here, and you'd see that there. And then once I have a promotion, under my agreements tab, under edit, there's this promo and adjustment, and you would see any current promotions that they have applied to them. You can end that promotion as well. This is also where you would go to add a promotion or adjustment later. So I could come in here, say, oh, there's an available adjustment. I could click it and say apply adjustment, and it would give them next month free or whatever that adjustment is doing. So yeah, that's pretty much it. The other thing we did is we added some filters and columns into our agreement initiations, agreement sales, and agreement rewrites reports. So if I go into data analytics now and go to agreements and then agreement initiation, for example, oh, I must be timed out. There's now a filter and a column, so it shows the agreement name and the promotion name, and then I can also filter by promotions as well. So that's in there. Alrighty, looks like we might have some questions. If a promotion does not have an unlimited number of occurrences, does it expire after the set occurrences have been completed so another promotion could be used afterwards? So the actual promotion would still be associated with the member, but you could end it. So if your promotion, for example, gave them a discount on just the very first instance, then there'd be no harm in me coming in later, ending that promotion and adding a new one. So that's a good question. So yeah, that's not a problem. Once you've kind of gotten what you want out of it, you can go and apply another promotion and it's not an issue. Will we be able to easily report on promotion name and promo code? So it did get added to these 3 fields. It also is a part of our DM table. So using Report Builder and Query Builder, you should have no issues building any custom reports that you need to also display the promotion just like we can with bundles and agreements and items. So that should be no problem. Okay, we're almost done. Thank you guys so much for sticking with me. Okay, so the next thing that we've got is the ability to schedule reports. This has been something, again, that a lot of people have asked for, so we're excited that we've got this into the feature or into the product. But there are a couple notes, excuse me, that I just want to make everybody aware of. So reports can only be scheduled one schedule per user. So for example, I'm a system administrator. I want my agreement sales report to run for all 5 of my general managers, but I only want them to see their club. I can't do that just from my login. Each sales manager would basically have to go set their schedule for the report that they want to receive with the criteria that they want to receive. And that's how that would work. And I'll show you this in a second. There's no permission for scheduling reports. So if you have access to data analytics and you have access to that report, you have access to schedule it. The other thing, and this is something, I don't think it's going to continue to work this way. This is just how it's working in this version. If I go in and start to set criteria for a report and then I hit the schedule button, I'll lose the criteria that I set. So you want to hit schedule before you start setting the criteria. And I'll show you what that looks like in a second. And then, also the dates are kind of funny. They're in military time of when you want it to be scheduled. So if you're doing anything in the afternoon, it might be easier to just use the time picker that comes standard, which I'll show you as well. And then that will give you military time options, and then that's what you have to do. So I've gone ahead and reset my login. I've logged back in and now I can get into reports. So what it's going to look like is any report now where you have the generate and the export options, I now have a schedule option. So this will just show up everywhere. So what I'm saying is my rule is I want to hit the schedule button first before I go through and start doing all of this, because it's going to be really annoying if you start doing that, hit schedule, lose all of these and have to go back and redo them again. So when I set the schedule, I'm going to say how often I want to receive this report. So in this example, I'll say I want to receive it every week on Friday. And then I can set the time. So this is where I'm saying this time picker might be easier to choose, like, okay, I want it at 20 hours. And then it'll send it to me then. I can say when I want it to start. If I want to set an end date, I can, but I don't need to. And then this one's really important. If you haven't really used the predefined dates before, you will start using them now because we need it to run these reports. So if I want this report to be for the week, I want to say, okay, run this report from this week start to this week end. Or I could say run it for, if this is like a monthly report, I can say do it for last month start to last month end, and it'll just know the dates that it should run from this criteria that you've sent. And then it's going to remind you, oh, go back and make sure your business units and your other filters are correct. So I'm going to say what I want to see. And then it wants to know what email address I want it to come from and what email address I want it to go to. So this email from can just be a dummy address. It doesn't have to be anything real. This is just what's going to appear. And then I say where I'm going to email it to. So I would put in my email address. And then I say what type of file attachment I want to receive. So whatever options show up right here as exports are what options will show up here. So if you have a report that only exports to PDF now, it will only let you attach it as a PDF. It won't give you that Excel option. And then I would hit save schedule, and my schedule would be in there from now on. Oh, except it didn't, but it would. So that's pretty much it for schedule reports. A couple of other things that I was saying is if you do have a report that you want to go to everybody, then we would suggest that you make a distribution email address on your side with your email client, and then put that email address. So if you have general managers at club.com, then you would put that general managers at club.com as the email, and then your email client would distribute it out. And that's how I would do that. So everything I've just talked about is documented here, but you'd have that. Okay, and then lastly, and definitely the most simple thing that we have covered today is we have really been taking a lot of feedback, and I know a lot of my team on professional services were actually on the ground and we're in your clubs and we're working with your front desk, and we hear a lot of the feedback that you guys are giving. So one of the big tasks that we've been taking on and working with our product and development team on is making really simple UI changes to enhance how easy it is to use the product. So keep those things coming, because we have a track for them where we're identifying what we'd like it to do, and it can be really simple, annoying things, and we'll cover one of them. But just make sure that you keep those requests coming in, because we want you to have an ease of use when you're using the product. So we've added a few of these things in here. So first of all, I mentioned earlier, we decreased the number of times that you're asked to finalize a transaction. So I think that the front desk and will appreciate this. This has been something that people were counting clicks on how long it took. So it's a lot simpler now. For those of you that do configuration, there's some really nice features that have been added. For item setup, bundle setup, and agreement setup, anywhere that it asks you to enter the item code, it'll now auto-populate that UPC field with the same information. So you don't have to go in and enter it twice, which is really nice. If you have a different UPC than an item code, you can certainly go in and override it. But most of the time, people are keeping them the same, and it was just kind of doubling up the work every time you went and added an item or a bundle or an agreement. So this will help kind of speed that up. Under agreement configuration, when you're adding items to an agreement, you don't see inactive bundles anymore, and you also won't see items or bundles that you've already moved from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. So again, just a little bit easier, especially if you have a lot of bundles and a lot of options. And then on that same agreement screen, we've also added a hide inactive button, so you don't see inactive agreements anymore if you don't want to. Okay, this one is hands down my favorite UI change that came in this version. When you go to the point of sale, and let's select a customer here. So one of the things that came up all the time is when you go to do a transaction, if you say add tender, when you get to this screen, if they're handing you a $20 bill, You used to have to backspace out of the 10 and then put in 20. Now you can just type in 20 or whatever amount they're handing you, and you don't have to do that. And I know it seems so silly, but it was really annoying, and I know that your front desk is really going to appreciate that, so make sure you tell them about it. So that's just a little bit easier, that it'll highlight the field and let you override that. The gender symbol on the children's tab wasn't working very well or consistently, and now that is. And then on the documents tab, when you were uploading documents, it would upload them and then it would kind of keep spinning and it wouldn't close the window. So that has also been corrected. As I mentioned, there is a big pull in our release that's coming after 2.1. There's even more, like 5 times the amount of these types of changes that you'll see, where things are going to be consistently listed in alphabetical order, or buttons are going to be a little more consistent among screens and things like that. So again, any of that feedback that you guys have is important. We really appreciate it. We are trying to get all this stuff in, and even if it seems kind of silly and dumb, it's good to report it because it's probably bothering somebody else too. So we'll just continue to keep working on those and making progress there, and we're excited about that. Okay, so that's all that I have. There are a few more features that are in 2.1 that I did not cover in this. Some of them have to do with corporates. Obviously, there's a ton of stuff with reports that has come out in this version. So I strongly, strongly recommend, I can't recommend it enough, that you go in and read through the wiki thoroughly, especially if you're a system administrator. There's reports that are new, there's reports that are changing. So you were using one report and now you're going to use a different report. So the reporting section of the release notes in the wiki is extremely important for those of you who need to understand that, so make sure that you go through that. And then also the wiki will go over bug fixes that are coming, which I didn't. I'm just covering really features that have been added. So just make sure you read the wiki is kind of what I'm trying to say. Again, this session has been recorded, so if you think that somebody in your group needs to see it, send me an email. My email address is just tlevitt@motionsoft.net, and that's LEVITT@motionsoft.net. And I can send you a link to the recording. And then I'll send everybody out an email with the document that I was referring to as we went through. I'll include a link to the wiki. And then again, we'll be sending out release notifications and reminders of when that's coming. It's scheduled for September 3rd. And we'll just make sure that we continue to communicate with you about that. Okay, it doesn't look like we have any other questions. So I think we're good to go. Thank you everybody so much for attending.